Well, hello, friends. Mark Holmes here with my buddy Cowboy Joe Boo, as well as Joe Bear in the house. And as always, I want to thank you guys for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, this literally does not work. Let's get open for business here and let's wake up those football guys. Wake up here, guys. Wake up. All right, so this is going to be one of those videos that you kind of go, oh, Lord, and I hope that I'm wrong. And I kind of, this is a continuation of what I've talked about before when we were talking about Zeke Elliott's contract. You know, there's certain things in the NFL that seem to always seem true. And, you know, you hope that we're able to buck the trend. But the Cowboys never seem to follow the trend of what most teams do. And one of these things, for example, okay, after a rookie has a good year, generally speaking, the second year they have the sophomore slump. Doesn't mean that all of them go through it, but a lot of players, a lot of quarterbacks will have a sophomore slump. Dak Prescott definitely went through a sophomore slump, losing Tyron Smith and Zeke Elliott and things, and he wasn't quite as good as he was his rookie year. Carson Wentz was the opposite of that. He was a lot better his second year than he was his first. In fact, his second year was probably his best season, so he's kind of more of the exception as opposed to the rule. But more than most guys, you saw Baker Mayfield definitely regressed after his first year. You know, Gardner Minshew wasn't as good as he was his rookie year, and so forth. So you can kind of follow along with those things and understand that typically that's how it goes. And I'm a numbers guy. I love statistics and probability, and I love to look at trends of things that have happened because a lot of times it's going to lead you to the future. So enter a discussion we had last year when Zeke Elliott was holding out, when Zeke Elliott was looking to get that big contract. And it was one of those things that, you know, more times than not, what happens with running backs, and you could look at Alfred Morris. You know, he was beasting for the Washington football team as a sixth-round draft pick, not getting paid chump change or getting paid chump change. He actually, as a backup running back, made more money from the Cowboys than he was with the Washington team. And hence, he never really made that second contract. And most running backs never get to that second contract. And it's one of those positions as opposed to quarterbacks, where you see quarterbacks that are 42 years old, you know, that are still playing like Tom Brady and things. You look at most quarterbacks that are playing late in the 30s. Very rarely do you see running backs. Now, there are exceptions to the rules, like Frank Gore. Frank Gore, just, you know, he is definitely the exception to the rule, as well as Adrian Peterson, who still, I believe, got about 300 yards this year right now. So you can look at that and say, yeah, Mark, you're full of crap because look at AP and Frank Gore. True, true. But again, this is one of those trends that you have to look at and wonder, are we the exception with Zeke Elliott, or are we going to be following the rule? Because just like quarterbacks have the sophomore slump, running backs, the fifth year is usually the death year or the drop off the cliff year. And by that, I mean that running backs, usually by the fifth year, are no longer the guy they were the first 4 years. Let me give you a few examples. And let's think. Now, again, Zeke Elliott may be the exception to the rule, and I pray that he's the exception to the rule. But running back, you know, is not like any other position. Every time you touch the ball, you're ending up on the ground. A quarterback, hopefully you're not on the ground more than 5 or 6 times in a game. And when you're on the ground, you sometimes, if you have a bad offensive line, you're getting pummeled at the line of scrimmage. You're getting 300-pound guys that are piling up on you. It is a tough position to have longevity. Emmitt Smith had longevity because he had a great offensive line that he was getting to the second level. It's different being hit by a linebacker or a safety and a cornerback versus being caught up in a pileup of big men. You could look at Darren McFadden, who was averaging 3.3 yards per carry with the Raiders because he was always getting hit in the backfield. He comes to the Cowboys, he's getting hit, and he was always injured. He comes to the Cowboys, he's getting to the second level, he's not getting injured. So As we look at Zeke Elliott this year, we know we have major problems with the offensive line, and we find out, of course, that Dak Prescott is Batman. So that's part of the problem with Zeke. But even before Dak went out, you still kind of looked at it and said, maybe there's something not quite there. And it may be that he has a lingering effects of COVID. I don't know. But Zeke Elliott's season is not anything close to what it's been in the past. Because as we look, let me move the camera a little closer here. As we look, and I don't know if you can read those numbers, but as we look, Zeke, 15 touchdowns his first year, 1,600 yards. Second year, of course, he missed 6 games. Still averaged 4.1 yards a carry, but 7 touchdowns in 10 games, 983 yards. Third year, 1,434 yards, 4.7 yards per carry. Last year, 1,357 yards, 4.5 yards per carry. This year, right now, he's on pace for about 1,000 yards and 3.9 yards a carry and 10 touchdowns. It's not awful, but that's not the Zeke that we've been used to seeing and hoping for. And again, some of that is the ineptitude of the offense without Dak Prescott and the problems with the offensive line, and also Mike McCarthy being more pass happy. But let me give you some other examples, and this is where you start saying, oh boy, did the Cowboys mess up by signing the big contract? Terrell Davis. Wow. Terrell Davis, first year, 1,700 yards, 7 TDs, 4.7 average. Second year, 1,500 yards, 13 TDs, 4.5 yard average. Third year, 1,750 yards, 15 TDs, 4.7. That was a monster year. Then 2008, boom, 2,008 yards, 21 TDs, 5.1 yards a carry. Unbelievable year. Super Bowl year. The next year, 211 yards, 2 TDs, 3.1. And I know you're going to say, well, but he hurt his knee. He got injured and he wasn't the same. True. Next on the list, Chris Johnson. And another one of those things, too. When you hit 2,000 yards, you're never the same again, with the exception being Barry Sanders and Adrian Peterson. Okay, Chris Johnson. Boom. Chris Johnson ended up having a long career, but it ended up being not as productive as his first ones. He made it through the 5th year before he fell off the cliff. But you can look at it and say 1,200 yards, 9 TDs, 4.9. You can look at his second year, 2,006 yards, 14 TDs, 5.6 yards a carry. Then it dropped, 1,300 yards, boom, 4.3. After that, 1,047, 4 yards a carry. And it just keeps going down, 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 down. Okay, let me give you another one. DeMarco Murray. As bad as it was, and as people kept saying, we need to re-sign DeMarco Murray, the Cowboys, from a financial standpoint, did the right thing with DeMarco Murray. They ran the hell out of him, and then they let him go. Because DeMarco Murray, 897 yards, 2 TDs his rookie year, sharing time. Second year, 663, boom, 4 TDs. Third year, 1,121 yards, 9 TDs. And then the record-breaking 1,845 yards, 13 TDs, 4.7 yards a carry. So we're talking about him averaging, look, 5.5, 4.1, 5.2, 4.7. He was beasting. After that 4th year, all of a sudden, he drops to 3.6. 702 yards. He wasn't the same after that 4th year. And I'll do one more over here. Let's see, who else did I have over here? Todd Gurley. Oh, if this isn't an example, I don't know what is. Todd Gurley, again, another guy who got the big contract, and he literally went off a cliff. Trend being, first year with Los Angeles, 1,100 yards, 10 TDs, 4.8. First year with the Rams, which was a terrible team, 885 yards, 3.2. Third year, 1,300 yards, 13 TDs, 4.7. Fourth year, the big year, which is usually about the peak, 1,251 yards, 17 TDs, 4.9, the highest of his career. After that, 857 and 3.8. And now we're down to, and so far the 8 games he's played, 531 yards, exactly the same number as Zeke Elliott. Exactly the same amount of yards as Zeke Elliott. 3.8, Zeke is 3.9. It may be time to start looking at that and realizing that there's a reason why you don't pay big contracts to running backs. It sucks because the running back takes more abuse than anybody else. But the harsh reality is, if you're looking at Zeke Elliott and thinking we're going to get value out of that whole contract, more than likely we're not. More than likely we're not. And this is one of those things where the Cowboys figured they were smarter than everybody else. And sometimes those moves don't work out when you keep trying to go away from the trend. I hope I'm wrong. I pray that I'm wrong. I pray that next year is a bounce back year, that we have the reincarnation of Adrian Peterson or Frank Gore, but the numbers will scare you. I'm Mark Holmes, and well, like I said, I did my research on this, and you can see the trend. Hope you guys are having a great day on this Thirsty Thursday. I will see you later.